Hey, they're biting, man. That's what we do on Caesar Borgia. They're biting. Okay, let's see what this is all about. Yeah, this is still in Korea, South Korea. And what you have to understand is they never, that war, that Korean conflict never stopped. It never ended. It never ceased. This war goes back 60 years, and what they had set up on the border of North Korea and South Korea was the DMZ, the demilitarized zone. And the soldiers on the south side of Korea are South Korean soldiers and U.S. Forces. And I forget the exact number of U.S. troops that are down there, but they're in the thousands. So they're already down there, man. Yeah, they had a TV show called MASH, and that was based on the Korean conflict. This is just evidence of mortars or missiles that was shot, supposedly that was shot by the North Koreans to the south side of Korea. So they're basically building a case for war. All right? I'll move on. We got enough of that.
Protests against austerity measures have flared up once again in cities across Europe. A 24-hour general strike is underway in Portugal over public sector pay cuts and tax rises 2 days before Parliament votes on a severe new budget. Well, the strike is set to cause the biggest disruption in the country for over 2 decades. Meanwhile, unrest is building in the UK over the government's proposal to increase university tuition fees. Well, let's cross-drive now to London, where we're joined by John Gaunt from the EU referendum campaign. Many thanks for joining us, Mr. Gaunt. Do you think that these austerity measures that we're seeing at the moment, which are causing unrest across Europe, are the best route to recovery? And if not,
you notice she said across Europe.
Well, I think the problem is that it's ordinary people who are going to have to pay for the mistakes of the bankers and the lax regulation of those banks by politicians of all parties right across Europe and across the Western world. It's ordinary people who are paying for these, whether it's students here in London who are demonstrating today, whether it's train workers or whether it's people who work in the public sector. The simple facts are that the bankers and the politicians seem to have got away scot-free. There's a major poll in today's Sun newspaper, the biggest tabloid here in Britain, and it says that British people, 48% of them didn't feel we should bail out Ireland, and nearly 80% are now saying that Britain or the United Kingdom should not bail out other countries like Portugal or Spain. These are difficult times, and this is why people are protesting on the streets, because it's them who are going to lose their houses and their jobs.
Well, you mentioned Ireland there. Of course, that is just the latest victim to this crisis that we're seeing sweeping across Europe. Bubbles followed by bailouts. First Greece, Ireland. Is Portugal next in line for an EU bailout?
Well, it certainly looks like Portugal are going to go pop today, and they're going to want that bailout. But as I say, there isn't an appetite here in the UK for it. We're not in the Eurozone. Of course, we've never even had a referendum, which is why we're part of the EU referendumcampaign.com. We want a referendum on whether we stay in Europe. But at the moment, the euro itself, which of course we're not part of the single currency.
Yeah, bring it back to me. And you notice these nations that are part of the Eurozone, they want to pull out of the euro. They don't believe in the euro anymore, all right? But this is in Scripture. All right, let's read the Scripture. Name it and read it.
Daniel chapter 2, verse 40. And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron. For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay and part of iron, The kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron. For as much as thou sawest the iron mixed with miry clay, and as a
that's the Eurozone. You know, you have NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and you have the EU, the European Union. So you have these nations, part of the the EU, that want to pull out now. But now they have to deal with these austerity measures. And we spoke about this about, what, 5-6 months ago in the beginning of the summer, dealing with Greece. And did not we say that it was going to spread to the acronym was PIGS, which was PIIGS. P is Portugal, and now as of this week, Portugal's got to deal with this situation, and they're going to be mass riotings over there in Portugal. So you got Portugal, which is a P. You got two I's. You got Ireland, which they've been in the news for these austerity measures, looking for that bailout. And then you got Italy, and then you got Greece, which Greece was the first one that experienced that whole thing, that austerity situation. Then you had Spain, and there's more European nations that are part of that EU. And like I said, it's going to eventually come over here. Go ahead.
It says, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. It says, and whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay.
That's right. They shall not cleave one to another. You got the Germans that say, no, we're not going to help you. Or if we help you, you're going to have to cut services, raise your retirement age, and so forth and so on. Because the only one that's doing well over there in Europe is really Germany. All right? Is there more to that? Okay. Right. That's right. That's right. Well, actually, the First World War and the Second World War were both behind Germany, you know? And there was one person that said that Germany is going to be the new power, and I think it's among the clips that I have. All right? So let's go on. Let's go back to the clip.
Crashing and burning, and after giving the UK taxpayer giving £10 billion to Ireland, who are still keeping their taxation, corporation taxation, at 12.5%, that sticks in our gullet a little bit. And it certainly looks like, as you say, Portugal are going to go the same way, and they have a general strike today. If Portugal go that way, there's a danger for the whole Iberian Peninsula. And I was in Spain at the weekend, and there's a real recession happening in Spain because, of course, their economy was based on construction, and at the moment there is no construction going on. Many swathes and swathes of houses completely unoccupied, brand new housing in Spain, and the euro in free fall. I can only see these protests getting worse.
You have all these beautiful,
you say you have just come back from Spain, but I do know that you are, of course, speaking to us from the UK. What is your thinking with regard to the future of the Eurozone and the single currency? Is it going to survive if we have to see a bailout every time that a member economy fails?
Well, the bottom line is the euro was a mistake in the beginning. Thank goodness we never joined the single currency. It is going to crash and burn. And also, you know, I would argue that is why we need a referendum on the EU, because, as I say, the British population have never been consulted on it in any real shape.
Gloom and boom report. Who else? What's the guy? Peter Schiff, if I'm saying his name right. And Peter Schiff, Peter Skiff, whatever the hell you want to call him, all right? So many of these so-called financial experts behind the scene, they're all saying the same thing. The euro's going to crash. And the American dollar, the Fed, the federal dollar, the U.S. dollar, so to speak, which is basically owned by a private organization, the Fed, the Federal Reserve Bank, that's getting ready to crash, man. You know. Let's go on.
which is why we at the EU referendum campaign want a full referendum on should we stay or should we go. I think the euro as a currency is doomed. Whether the EU can survive is another issue, but it's certainly under major pressure at the moment. The German people as well, fed up of bailing out economies like Greece, like Ireland, and indeed now Portugal as well. I think Spain will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I mean, it just is unsustainable. I don't see how you can tie the economies of somewhere like Greece with an economic powerhouse like Germany. That's the fundamental problem. The Eurocrats, and here in the UK we give £48 million a day to Brussels. They're out of touch with the man and woman in the street, and it's not just as I say here in the UK that students are protesting today, but in Portugal there's a general strike. The strike's planned in Spain in the next couple of weeks as well.
Russia and Germany should dramatically increase their economic cooperation. That is the message from Russian Prime Minister Vladimir Putin to some of Germany's top industrialists at a business forum in Berlin. RT's Yegor Piskunov has been following the discussions.
Vladimir Putin made a speech at the forum focusing on the cooperation between Russia and the European Union, calling for more cooperation and more ties. In fact, he said that if Russia and the European Union want to stay competitive in the world, in the international economy, then it is vital for both to work together. He also called European partners not to hamper cooperation between European companies and Russian companies. Once again, he talked about creating a free economic zone, free trade zone between Russia and the European Union from Lisbon to Vladivostok, and called the international community, but specifically business elite here in Germany and the European Union, to put their efforts together in order to solve the remaining problems, many of which are still quite visible here in Europe and in Russia as well. But let's listen to what Vladimir Putin had to say.
The euro is slightly fluctuating, but as a whole, it's a good, stable world currency that should take its rightful position as the world reserve currency. I think over the last 10 years, there has been one wrong aspect that we should definitely eliminate. It's the excessive monopoly of the dollar as the sole world reserve currency. This is certainly something negative.
The Russian Prime Minister was also asked the question whether or not he was going to run for president during the next presidential poll in Russia. Well, Vladimir Putin said that both he and
the United States, it can dry up and blow away.
That's showing you how these other nations around the world feel about the United States. That's why this thing is going to happen. Give me that in Revelation, the 17th chapter, and around about the 12th verse. You might want to start up a verse or two up. All right, go ahead.
Verse 10. And there are 7 kings, Revelation 17 and 10. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and one is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast.
That's basically talking about the EU. The beast is NATO. All right. They came into power. What was the year? Was it 59? I think it was 58, but they received the charter in 59. That's when they came into power. Read that part again.
These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast.
Oh, read up above that.
It says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet.
Right, that's the EU that later joined with the with NATO. Now it was supposed to be 10 initially 10 nations, but now it's 27. But when you go back into history, you're gonna have to do the homework. You're gonna find that those 27 nations, in one way or another, link up to 10 nations, 10 principal nations. So it is 10, whether they go around advertising it like it's 27. Go ahead.
It says, but